What's up, guys? This is Chris from DraftDashboard.com.
Here are my DFS picks for NFL Week 14 Millionaire Maker.
These picks apply for DraftKings and FanDuel. Before I get started, please drop a like on this video and hit that red subscribe button
And hit that bell icon
so you don't miss our new videos.
Okay guys, this is for the Millionaire Maker slate, which is the Sunday main slate at 1 p.m. Oh, and stick around to the very end of this video after I show you all my picks in the Draft Dashboard tools. I'll show you these players in DraftKings and in FanDuel, the Millionaire Maker slates. There'll be 2 spots open that you have to fill in, but you'll have a great Millionaire Maker core. Okay guys, NFL Week 14. Let's take a look at the quarterback position. So my Millionaire Maker quarterback is Trevor Lawrence from the Jacksonville Jaguars, playing the Tennessee Titans, who have the 10th worst defense overall, and they give up the 3rd most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. Trevor Lawrence has averaged 18.4 fantasy points per game on the season. He's getting an average of 3.6 rush attempts per game. Only going to be about 5% owned. Projected at 16.9 fantasy points here in Week 14. I think he can score 20 fantasy points in this matchup. And Trevor Lawrence is $5,700 DraftKings salary, $1,500 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 41.5 points scored in this game, with the Jaguars trailing by 3.5. Trevor Lawrence has scored 16, 29, and 21 fantasy points in the last 3 games. He got 4, 2, and 4 rush attempts in those games. It's a great matchup, so I like Trevor Lawrence here versus the Tennessee Titans. Okay, let's take a look at the running back position. So I'm going to save some salary with this pick. My Millionaire Maker running back is D'Onta Foreman from the Carolina Panthers, playing the Seattle Seahawks, who have the 6th worst defense overall. They give up the 3rd most fantasy points to opposing running backs. And D'Onta Foreman has averaged 8.4 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 10.5 rush attempts per game. He gets close to 1 pass target per game. He's going to be about 9% owned, projected at 10.9 fantasy points here in Week 14. I think he can score 14 fantasy points or more in this one. He's only $5,400 DraftKings salary, $1,500 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 43.5 points scored in this game, with the Panthers trailing by 4. So D'Onta Foreman has scored 14, 2, and 22 fantasy points in the last 3 games off of 24, 11, and 31 rush attempts on top of 0, 1, and 1 pass target. So monster volume 2 out of the last 3 weeks. Matchup is good. Salary is still low. I just love that volume. 24 touches last week. So I like D'Onta Foreman here versus the Seattle Seahawks.
Before I continue with the picks, I'm excited today because we added a new contest for everyone watching.
If you want to enter the drawing for $25 PayPal,
all you need to do is like this video, hit that subscribe button, and make a quick comment below to be entered into the drawing. We'll reply to a random comment and let you know that you won.
And we'll send you $25 PayPal.
So it's that easy, and we pick a new winner every Saturday and announce them in our video. So get your comment in now so I can add another entry for you.
Okay, let's take a look at the wide receiver position. So my Millionaire Maker wide receiver is Christian Kirk from the Jacksonville Jaguars, playing the Tennessee Titans, who have the 10th worst defense overall. They give up the absolute most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. Christian Kirk has averaged 16.3 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 8.3 pass targets per game. He's been on the field for 89% of the snaps, going to be about 11% owned, projected at 14.5 fantasy points here in week 14. He's 6,600 DraftKings salary, 1,000 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 41.5 points scored in this game, with the Jaguars trailing by 3.5. Christian Kirk has scored 19, 8, and 35 fantasy points in the last 3 games off of 8, 9, and 12 pass targets. So fantastic matchup. I like the stack with Trevor Lawrence. And I just realized that I gave you guys Christian Kirk and Trevor Lawrence yesterday in my top DFS picks video. Normally I like to diversify these picks here, but I am going to go with these guys in my Millionaire Maker. But if you want to switch it up here, let me just go back real quick to the quarterback position. If you're looking for different picks in this video, I also like Mike White as quarterback from the New York Jets, who scored 23 and 28 fantasy points in the last 2 games. Got 3 rush attempts in both of those games. Only going to be about 4% owned. And he's 5,500 DraftKings salary, 1,300 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 44 points scored in this game. The Jets trailing by 9.5. So should be a passing game script. Now it's not the best matchup here. Buffalo Bills have a good defense overall, and they've been good versus opposing quarterbacks. But Mike White has been fantastic in the last 2 games. And then if you want to stack a quarterback with Mike White, take a look at Garrett Wilson from the New York Jets. And the Buffalo Bills do have a good defense overall, but they give up the 10th most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. Garrett Wilson has averaged 14.1 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 7.8 pass targets per game. He's going to be about 14% owned, projected at 12.5 fantasy points here in week 14. He's 5,900 DraftKings salary, 1,300 more on FanDuel, and Garrett Wilson has scored 27, 26, and 3 fantasy points in the last 3 games off of 15, 8, and 3 pass targets, and he got 2 rush attempts as well in the last 3 games. So I just realized, guys, I was supposed to give you Mike White and Garrett Wilson stack for this Millionaire Maker video. I just totally spaced it and went with Trevor Lawrence and Christian Kirk. But both of these quarterback wide receiver combos I think are pretty good for this week. You're going to save some salary on both of these, on all these guys. So you'll have plenty of salary for the rest of your lineup. So sorry about that. But in this video and at the end of this video, I am going to go with Mike White and Garrett Wilson as my Millionaire Maker stack. So I like Garrett Wilson here versus the Buffalo Bills.
Real quick, guys, I got great news. For a limited time, we're offering a full 30-day trial to Draft Dashboard. You can try all the tools for NFL. NBA is right around the corner. This is a great time to get in and try everything for 1 month. The tools are all about saving research time. You can see the last 3 games, the fantasy points per game, the targets they got per game, so you can see how involved they are in the offense, the rushes they got per game. Seeing all this stuff on one screen helps you save time and make better picks. Oh, and if you're tired of doing research every day, we just added a cheat sheet that shows hand-picked plays for the slate. No confusing stat lines, no headaches, just a simple cheat sheet that shows the absolute best players for your lineups.
Okay, moving on to the tight end position. My tight end Millionaire Maker is Greg Dulcich from the Denver Broncos, playing the Kansas City Chiefs, who have the 8th worst defense overall. They're middle of the pack defending opposing tight ends. Greg Dulcich has averaged 9 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 5.3 pass targets per game. He's going to be about 8% owned, projected at 9.1 fantasy points
here in week 14. Only 3,400 DraftKings salary, 2,000 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 43 points scored in this game, with the Broncos trailing by 9. So Greg Dulcich has scored 15, 3, and 7 fantasy points in the last 3 games off of 8, 3, and 5 pass targets. So he's been all over the place in the past 3 weeks, but I like that he got 8 pass targets last week, and the volume has been pretty consistent throughout the season. So I like Greg Dulcich here versus the Kansas City Chiefs. Oh, and also he's been on the field for 100% of the snaps, so he's always out there. And because Vegas thinks that the Broncos are going to be trailing by 9, I do think it's going to be a passing game script. So I think he is going to get 6 to 8 pass targets in this game. For his price tag, I think that gives him a lot of upside. So I like Greg Dulcich here versus the Kansas City Chiefs.
If you want to try all these daily fantasy tools for yourself, click the link in the description below this video or just go to draftdashboard.com. You can use our DFS lineup optimizer to build quality lineups using our picks and your own custom player pool. Click the link in the description below this video and try all these daily fantasy tools right now. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon so you can get instant updates whenever we post a new video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please smiggity smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh, and please comment below with your favorite player for this NFL slate. I love to hear what you guys have to think. Thanks again, and good luck. You've unlocked the bonus content.
Here we are in the DraftKings lineup optimizer. Over here on Draft Dashboard, we have our Millionaire Maker core locked in here. We've generated a lineup, so let's see who we got. We got Mike White, Deonta Foreman, Dalvin Cook, Juju Smith-Schuster, Stephon Diggs, Garrett Wilson, Greg Dulcich, DeAndre Swift, and the Steelers defense. So I like this lineup quite a bit here. It looks like we've got some players in the Kansas City-Denver Broncos game, which they said is Vegas thinks is going to be a high-scoring game. And then we have, we've got Garrett Wilson and Mike White running it back with Stephon Diggs. So if those games go off, we could be in a pretty good spot here. And then we also have Dalvin Cook from the Vikings and DeAndre Swift from the Detroit Lions. So I like this lineup quite a bit. I'm going to save this lineup so I can optimize it later if anything changes. Okay, now here we are in the FanDuel lineup optimizer. Over here on Draft Dashboard, we have our Millionaire Maker core locked in. We've generated a lineup, so let's see who we got. We got Mike White, Deonta Foreman, Miles Sanders, Gabe Davis, Jamar Chase, Garrett Wilson, Greg Dulcich, Amon-Ra St. Brown. I like to call him Street Brown. And then we have the Lions defense. So I like this lineup here. I do like my DraftKings lineup a little bit better. But these got good players. Now Jamar Chase came back, played 82% of the snaps, scored 13.2 fantasy points. Only going to be about 7% owned on FanDuel. This guy's got 20 plus fantasy point upside, so he could have a huge day. Decent matchup here. So I think that's a pretty good play. And then Gabe Davis, he scored 18 fantasy points, 15 fantasy points were his 2 best games out of the last 8 games or so. Generally scores around 10 fantasy points. But this is the guy that if Stephon Diggs isn't going to go off, then it's probably going to be Gabe Davis. So I think I like that as a hedge if we have Stephon Diggs in our DraftKings lineup and we have Gabe Davis to save some salary here in the FanDuel lineup. Hope that he can score a couple of touchdowns. And then Miles Sanders is in a good spot here versus the Giants. And he's playing pretty well the past 2 games. scored 30 and 11 fantasy points the past 2 games. So not in love with this lineup, to be honest with you. I think we could do a little bit of tinkering here and maybe make a little bit better of a lineup. Like we could go Dameon Pierce from the Houston Texans playing the Dallas Cowboys. Save a little bit of salary on that pick, and then let's see if that lets us upgrade Gabe Davis to go to a guy like Brandon Ayuk, although he's got a new quarterback, not Jimmy G anymore. Let's see if we can get to, let's see, Juju Smith-Schuster. We could go with him, although he hasn't performed very well either. Let's go with Adam Thielen from the Minnesota Vikings. Save a little bit of salary there. He's been struggling a bit, but I think he's due for a big game. So we got Adam Thielen in there, and now we can upgrade our defense here. We could go with the Jacksonville Jaguars defense playing the Tennessee Titans. So I think I like this lineup a little bit better. We got Mike White, Deonta Foreman, Dameon Pierce, Adam Thielen, Jamar Chase, Garrett Wilson, Greg Dulcich, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and the Jaguars defense. So I like this lineup a little bit better. I'm going to save this lineup so I can optimize it later if anything changes.
Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh, and please comment below with your favorite player for this NFL slate. I love to hear what you guys have to think. Thanks again, and good luck.